Hello, welcome to the latest We Are Sunderland briefing with myself, Dom Shaw, and Scott Wilson, both of We Are Sunderland in association as ever with our partners, the Fans Museum and Cospex Opticians. It's Wembley week.
It's Wembley week. Yeah, it's still glorious sunshine looking outside there. So it's just what you want for Wembley week, isn't it? But
The countdown is well and truly on. So we're recording this on Tuesday lunchtime. This is our first of a couple of odd vids pods we're going to do this week. We've got a Sheffield United reporter coming on later in the week who will give us some behind the scenes insight into what to expect from the opposition this weekend, which will be good. But yeah, we're going to have an early look ahead, really. Before, obviously, we've spoken to Regis Le Bris, who's doing his press conference on
yes,
Thursday.
you're going there on Thursday, aren't you?
Yeah, and Chris Wilder's doing his now. That's early, isn't it? He's doing
it is
his
getting in early, isn't it?
Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled. I'm sure there'll be stuff to come from that on Tuesday afternoon. But yeah, an early look ahead, and then we'll do a more detailed kind of analysis of both sides when we speak again, probably on Thursday. What are your early thoughts then, Scott, as we roll into Wembley week? Because I don't know about you, but in the build up to a big game, your kind of emotions or your predictions or your feelings about a game do kind of sway this way and
Yeah,
that
they do.
in the days that build up to it.
Yeah, they do, and I think Sunderland fans will have that. They'll go through all the emotions. My number one feeling, and I felt it from the minute the game was set up, was I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be a tight game. I think they're two closely matched teams. I think, as we've seen from the two legs of the semi-final, Regis Le Bris, his kind of default setting probably is pragmatism. I'd be utterly amazed if Sunderland were gung-ho and caution to the wind and wide open at any stage, really, of the final on Saturday. But certainly, unless you got to a stage where they absolutely had to be very, very late on. I think, I'm not saying, and I'm sure we'll get to this, I'm not saying the tactics will be the same. I'm not saying the lineup will necessarily be the same. But I think that the general mindset of let's keep Sunderland in the game, let's give nothing away, let's be tight, let's be well organised, let's be tactically on it. And then as the game starts to open up, as we can maybe cause a threat on the break, as things happen, we'll adapt. But I think early on, Sunderland will want to keep things tight. Sheffield United obviously are a bit more expansive, but I think fundamentally under Wilder, they're a slightly similar team, and I think they're well structured, they're well organised, they know what they're doing, and they're tactically well drilled. I can see it being a tight game with not a whole host of chances. Personally, what do you think on that score?
Yeah, I think the same. It's interesting. So I was going to get to it, but we'll get to it now. I've spoken to a few neutrals this week who have been very much of the opinion of, I just think Sheffield United will have too much. I just think they'll be too powerful. I just think they'll have too much. But I think that the weight of expectation on Sheffield United's shoulders, I'm not saying that is going to weigh them down, but I think that can only benefit Sunderland. I spoke to Dan Ballard at the Academy last week, and we'll get on to that. But one of the things he said was that almost like the nerves have gone now, because it almost feels like they've not got away with one. That's wrong against Coventry. But having come through that, it almost feels like having had that escape, it's now anything else is a bonus, really. Now, clearly you want to finish the job. The Sunderland are going to Wembley to win on Saturday. The team believe they can win. The team believe they will win. But I don't know. I just wonder whether the Sheffield United are favourites, understandably. They finished 14 points ahead of Sunderland.
Yeah, but see, I think that's a stat that is being thrown around left, right, and centre. That's a meaningless stat. Sheffield United wouldn't have finished 14 points ahead of Sunderland if Regis Le Bris hadn't done what he did in the last season.
No.
For most of this season, Sheffield United and Sunderland have been very closely matched. They were very closely matched in the two games between them. Sunderland obviously won at the Stadium of Light. Sheffield United in the game at Bramall Lane, in which both teams had a man sent off. Bit crazy. They obviously came out on top there. I don't think, are Sheffield United a better team than Sunderland? You can maybe make the argument that they've got a slightly stronger squad and maybe slightly more seasoned kind of match winners in there. But I really, really don't think there's very much in it. I don't necessarily buy this idea that Sheffield United are comfortable favourites and that much better than Sunderland. I don't think there's anything between the teams, really.
Why do you think they are in terms of the bookies? Then I mean, some bookmakers have priced Sheffield United at almost 1-2. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because I think
it's nasally. They finished 14 points above them. They were in the Premier League last season. It's Sheffield United. Sunderland weren't expected. Do you think it's just a combination?
I think all of that buys into it. I think it's the fact that for pretty much all of the season, the notion was Sheffield United, Leeds and Burnley are the best teams in this league. 2 of them will go up. It'll be a battle to the end. 1 will drop away. Sunderland, for all that they were bang up there, externally, I don't think really got the credit they deserved. There was always a sense that Sunderland were going to drop away. And obviously, the way it happened in the end, it was kind of, well, I told you so. I knew this would happen with Sunderland. They're just not quite as good. It's a bit more nuanced than that, I think. But I think there is the idea that Sheffield United will bang up there all the time. The worry from a Sheffield United point of view externally was probably how are they going to cope with being the team that misses out? You know, the third place team, historically, there's all the narrative around that's not where you want to finish. You know, you're dropping out of the top 2. Well, actually, the semi-final from a Sheffield United perspective put all of that to bed. They blew Bristol City away. They looked very good in both legs. Yeah, that's all fine. So I think all of that has built into the narrative that they are a better team than Sunderland. Like I say, I think that's a bit too simplistic. I don't think that there's the gulf between them. I definitely think they should be closer matched in terms of the bookies' prices. I was surprised there was that big a gap between them. But like I say, 14 points, Sheffield United, Premier League experience, big game players. They were, you know, they looked for a long stage of the season like they might finish above Leeds and Burnley. Yeah, all of that, fine. But I don't think there's the gulf between the teams that some people are suggesting there is.
And what can we read in the semi-finals, do you think? Because I think 2 factors, really. I think Coventry are a better team than Bristol City. I think Sunderland overcame a better team in the semi-finals than what Sheffield United did. And for all Sheffield United blew Bristol City away with a record-breaking 6-0 scoreline over 2 legs, that's swayed by the fact that Bristol City had a man sent off in the first leg and then obviously go to the second leg at Bramall Lane well up against it. I have to go for it. That was always going to play into Sheffield United's hands. Again, I don't think you can read too much. Clearly, it's going to buoy Sheffield United after what was a not a flaky, but certainly an inconsistent end to the season. There's no doubt it's going to buoy Sheffield United and help address the nerves there, which we'll get to because of Sheffield United's playoff record. But I don't think Sunderland should necessarily be intimidated by the fact that Sheffield United beat Bristol City over 2 legs. No. This is a Bristol City team whose finishing points total was the lowest to finish 6th in the Championship since 2013. I think it was. It wasn't an amazing Bristol City team by any means, was it?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head that game changed the minute Bristol City had a player sent off in the first leg. You know, the Bristol City in that first leg then conceded 2 really, even with 10 men, conceded 2 poor goals. Sheffield United, 3-0 winners after the first leg, absolutely cock-a-hoop. I mean, for the first 15 or 20 minutes of that second leg, Bristol City had a little bit of a go. They had a couple of chances. If they'd scored in that spell, it would have been interesting. Sheffield United, to their credit, ride that out and then ultimately run out very, very easy winners. Yeah, fair play. You know, listen, they're a good Championship team. There's no doubt about that. They are a good team. They do have weapons that Sunderland will have to be really wary of. Like I say, they're well organised. They're not going to give an awful lot away, I don't think. But I think the only thing really you can read into the Sheffield United semi-final is what I was alluding to before, that any idea that there might be some lingering fallout from dropping out of the Leeds-Burnley fight, well, that was well and truly put to bed. You know, fair play to Chris Wilder and the players at Sheffield United. What could have been a emotionally difficult situation clearly hasn't been. They've found a way through that. They've drawn a line under that. They've reset. They've done that, you know, really, really well. So I think all we can say is that Sheffield United will be going into this game full of confidence, on the front foot, not at all perturbed by the fact that they were the team that missed out in the 3-way battle. And yeah, you know, there are threats there Sunderland will have to be wary of. But just because they beat Bristol City 6-0, I don't think it necessarily, automatically means that they're 6 goals better than a Sunderland team who, as we know, needed every last second to get past Coventry. Well, that's clearly not the case, is it?
The strength in the Sheffield United squad's quite something, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So looking at the squad for Bristol City, I mean, just coming off the bench that day, they had Tom Davies, Ryan Brewster, Tyrese Campbell, and Callum O'Hare. They had Tom Cannon and Kiefer Moore starting up front. They've got Gus Hamer, who I think you're hard pressed to find a better Championship player. Yeah. He's a Premier League player playing in the second tier, isn't he? There's no getting more from the strength of the squad.
Yeah, and clearly, the longer the game goes on, the more that will potentially be a factor. If I'm in any way right, and it is a tight, close game, then if you're heading into extra time and Sheffield United are bringing a Ryan Brewster on or a Tyrese Campbell on or whatever, then that immediately feels and will be better than probably what Sunderland are able to do with their bench. I think we know that. But that said, for the bulk of the game, you can only play 11. Sheffield United's actual starting 11. In some areas, you could maybe make the argument it's better than Sunderland's, but I think there's some areas where it's not. Like I say, I keep coming back to, I think they're two very, very closely matched teams. So, yeah, squad depth might make a difference if we're going really deep here, if it's extra time, if it's all of that. If it's 0-0 with 15 minutes left, what can the managers do? How can they change things? Wilder will have more options, but I'd still put a fair bit of faith in Le Bris's tactical acumen and ability to make changes both before a game and during it. I think that's something that plays into Sunderland's favour. So I keep repeating myself here, but I just think I genuinely think they're very closely matched.
We'll get shortly. We'll get the Sunderland starting lineup. What should Le Bris do? The dilemmas there, and who's likely to start. Just one more on the kind of build up to the game and run by you. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and they were looking back on the FA Cup final, and one of the guys on there was saying that there's no getting away from the fact that in the approach to the ground, in the stadium itself, you could tell that it meant more to the Crystal Palace fans than it did the Manchester City fans. Now, Sheffield United's fans are class. When you go to Bramall Lane, they make a brilliant noise. It's a great atmosphere there. It's undoubtedly one of the best in the Championship. And yet, I was reading a piece on the Sheffield Star earlier where they talk about the kind of lingering hangover of Premier League last season, how disappointing it was for them. And there's just a paragraph in there. You can still sense it now. Bramall Lane hasn't quite felt the same. Some people might talk of a hangover from last season in terms of the atmosphere, but at times it still feels more like the collective recovering of a trauma. Sheffield United have got bad recent memories of the Premier League. This, in terms of recent years, really recent years, is new and exciting for Sunderland. So I'm not going to say for 1 minute Sunderland fans want it more, but do you think there'll be any difference in the atmosphere, in the feel, in the stadium between the two sets of fans?
I think the fact that Sunderland fans have been to Wembley and won will make a difference in the general feel around the day. I do. Now, will that have any impact on Le Bris, the Sunderland players, Wilder, the Sheffield United players? Probably not. But in terms of the general mood of the day and the feel of the day, I think it will make a difference, because for years and years, Sunderland's mindset heading to Wembley was, well, what's going to go wrong next? We've had so many kicks in the teeth. Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. What's going to go wrong next? Even when they get the first win, it's in COVID and nobody's there. So I think the fact that they got the job done in that weekend, I know it was a League One playoff final. It's clearly not where Sunderland as a club or as a fan base want to be. But it was a weekend of winning at Wembley. All that I read ahead of Sheffield United, ahead of this game, and this is fan sites, it's the local media, it's the national media, it's everything, is 100 years since they won a game at Wembley, haven't won on the last 7 visits there. Wembley's been a disaster for them, all of this. Now, we're in a year where Newcastle have put a hoodoo to bed, Crystal Palace have put a hoodoo to bed. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. Spurs maybe are going to finally win a trophy and kind of put a hoodoo to bed. Is it a year when teams with a dreadful record in finals and at Wembley, turn that round. Maybe I've heard a few Sheffield United fans saying that's something they're clinging to. But I just think from Sunderland, whereas in previous Wembley visits, the mood's been, well, this is great. You know, we're massively excited. We think we can do it, but it's Wembley, isn't it? We never win at Wembley. Well, that's not there now. So I think that will make a little bit of a difference to the whole feel of the occasion. What do you think?
Well, I think the other thing is that you say there about what's kind of come up, the recurring theme. The other thing that's come up again and again is not just Sheffield United's Wembley record, but the playoff record. Is it nine successive failures in the playoffs? A dismal recent record. Now, I tend to think that sort of thing doesn't really matter. Like this group of players and not going to be affected by what happened however many years ago. If someone were playing Leeds in a playoff final this year after Leeds had lost last year, this group of Leeds players, well, that's different. But I tend to think that shouldn't really matter. And yet Chris Wilder has been asked about it again and again, hasn't he, in the build-up to the playoffs, while the playoffs have been going on. I'm sure he's probably been asked about it while he's speaking as we speak here. I don't think that should make a difference. We talked about this last week. Well, you mentioned it, didn't you, when we were on the way home from the semi-final game. I think it has the makings of being a really class couple of days, because you've got two big sets of fans going down from the north. They're going to camp out there on the Friday night. It's going to be absolutely buzzing. We've seen the scenes when Sunderland have been there in the past, haven't we? So it's going to be buzzing on the Friday night. It's not like one of those where Crystal Palace, Man City, or where there's
Sunderland, Man City in the League Cup final all those years ago, when Man City just turned up on the day 10 minutes before kickoff, all of their fans expecting to win. It's not that kind of occasion, is it?
No, it's not. It's going to feel different in the build-up, doesn't it? And I think that's why I think it's going to be a great feel in the build-up to the game. And then you wonder whether the game, for all we talk about the tactical side of things, how Le Bris will approach it, I often think with so many big games, it comes down to how the players deal with the enormity of the occasion. Yeah. Now, with Sunderland's team, I think there's probably a couple of ways of looking at it. It's a young team. This is probably the biggest. I was thinking this morning, this is probably the biggest game all of them have played in. Enzo Lefebvre might well have played in bigger ones, but that aside,
he's probably the only one, isn't he?
Yeah, but then the other thing you so often hear from with people in the game is the fearlessness of youth, and this Sunderland side has never struck me as the type to freeze, even when things haven't gone to plan this season. I never thought it was Sunderland's players failing to show up on a big stage. There was questions about the motivation, wasn't it, at the end of the season when they qualified? There's been tactical maybe tinkerings that haven't quite gone to plan. They've missed key players, but I don't think at any stage you've come away and thought they froze there. Sunderland's players froze there, and I don't think they will on Saturday.
I mean, if you look at someone like Joe Bellingham, he's going to be puffing his chest out. Yeah. I mean, this is the stage he feels he's born to play on. So, and I think Dan Neil will largely be the same. Trey Hume, I don't have worries about. Ballard, I don't have worries about. Those younger players, if you like, that are going to be in the starting 11. Mayenda, we'll get to that. That's maybe a slightly different one, But certainly, the ones I've talked of there, I don't have a worry about. Oh my God, can they? Will the occasion be too big for them?
No, because for all we talk about the age and relative inexperience of this team in terms of age, in terms of football years, in terms of experience, in terms of games played, it's a dead argument. And I think the other thing is that there's a lot of leaders in this Sunderland team: Luke O'Nien, Dan Ballard, Dan Neil, Joe Bellingham, Chris Meffam, who's probably going to be on the bench, but Dan Neil was telling us, and Dan Ballard has told us in the last week or two about how important he is. Trey Hume, Patrick Roberts is an experienced player now. I think when you look around the Sunderland team and the squad, Simon Moore on the bench, like they're dotted around with so much, so many leaders now. I think that can only stand them in good stead as well.
No, I agree. I don't worry about that, and I don't worry about Le Bris being a kind of rabbit in the headlights either. He's such a methodical coach, the way that he goes about things, that, you know, he will have his plan and he'll be sticking to it come what may, and the emotion and everything and all of that around him, you know, his message will be level heads, keep calm, you know, yes, enjoy the occasion, but this is the job I want you to do. You know, each individual, this is your role, this is your job, this is how you fit into the wider tactics. I don't have any worry about that side of it either, really.
Right, the team selection then. You touched on it there on my ender. So the back five picks itself, doesn't it? Dan Neil and Joe Bellingham.
I mean, if there was any doubts over the Ballard Metham argument, then they're gone. A Lacey maybe in and around it, but clearly hasn't played anything like enough football to realistically dislodge Serkin from left back, even if you thought he was the better left back, which is a debate. So, no, the back five picks itself.
And Neil and Bellingham start. There's your 7. Lefay starts,
yeah,
but it's whether he starts centrally or number left or on the left, and wherever he fits into the jigsaw probably results in whoever else gets the nod or whoever else is left out. So it feels like it's then out of Rig, Roberts, Mayenda, Isidore. Who do you think? Mundell. Who do you think? Who do you think should start?
Okay, so if I was picking my team, and this is largely off the back of the second leg against Coventry, when I did think Sunderland looked unbalanced in the 4-4-2 in a way that they hadn't at the CBS Arena, and undoubtedly looked better balanced when Le Bris made his changes. I would go 4-2-3-1. 4-3-3 to a degree when you're not in possession, but effectively 4-2-3-1. The back four, as we've said, Neil and Job. I would go Roberts on the right, as long as he's fully fit, because that's the question mark. We know that he had that calf issue that he was kind of playing through in the second leg of the semi-final. Maybe we'll get an update from Le Bris on that on Thursday. If Roberts is fully fit, he starts for me. Lefay's the 10, Mundell on the left, Mayenda up top. No Isidore.
And what do you think?
That's my team. Right. I don't think Le Bris will pick that.
What do you think he will? Before I get to mine, then what do you think he will? No, so I'll say what I'd do first, and then we'll get to what you. So obviously I'd agree with you. I wouldn't go 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3. Neil, Bellingham. I'd start Mayenda up front. I think I'd be inclined to go Lefay left, but then Roberts. He's going to play Roberts, isn't he? He is going to play Roberts. I think I'd go. I'd go Lefay. Mundell started 4 championship games since mid-September. I think it's too much of an ask to put Mundell in from the off against this Sheffield United team. I think it's a safer option to go Lefay on the left. I think I'd probably then bring Rig in the middle, Roberts right, Mayenda up front. It's got to be Mayenda, I think, over Isidore, just on recent evidence. But I'd be amazed if Wilson Isidore started on the bench.
Yeah, see, in that scenario you're talking about there, where Lefay stays on the left, I suspect, and I think this might be the team, I suspect Mayenda and Isidore will both play, just not as a pair. I think you'll play both of them, but with one off the other.
And Roberts right and Rig on the bench.
Roberts right, Rig on the bench. I mean, how many times this season have we seen Rig and Roberts both start?
Well, is there a case?
Certainly, that, to be fair, I'm going in the second half of the season here. Let's just have a quick look at this. Because it's felt like increasingly, it wasn't up until Christmas, was it, really? They were both starting.
Well, that was the 3
But it's felt increasingly like it's been one or the other, really. I'm saying that, but it's felt like it's been one or the other when he's had Lefay to fit in as well. If Enzo Lefay wasn't here at Sunderland, then I think the team then picks it largely as an easier call, because then you've got your 3 midfielders that started the season, Job, Neil and Rig. You've got Roberts on the right. you've got Isidore up front, and you've got either Mayenda or Mundle on the left. And that was the team for the first half of the season, wasn't it? And that would be the team. Where the wild card has come in is Le Fere, because you've got to play him. And you've got to play him either on the left as a 10 or as a 10. That then makes it more difficult to fit Rig and Roberts into the same team, doesn't it?
Yeah, but Roberts hasn't been great of late, has he? No, there's no getting away from that. But and it was, it kind of emerged, didn't it, after the second leg, that he'd been playing with a bit of a calf strain, or he had a bit of a calf strain. That'll be an interesting one for Le Bris on Thursday. And yet, Roberts is absolutely one of the trusted players in Le Bris' team. Le Bris has talked a lot, hasn't he, about how he likes to triangle on the right, and he liked the Rig Roberts triangle for a while. But as you say, the curveball was the arrival of Le Fere. I just think with Mundle, I thought he made a real difference against Coventry, but that was 90 minutes in against a tiring Coventry team in extra time. I just think it's a big ask to start.
It is a big ask. It is a big ask. I completely understand that. I just, for all that we've seen the changes and the tweaks and everything, Le Bris has fairly consistently said that he likes the balance of a kind of more natural left-sider out there. He's always kind of stressed that Le Fere there has been to solve a problem. If he felt he could absolutely trust Mundle, I think he plays him. But I agree with you. His lack of football this season and just his general lack of championship experience, really. Never mind big game experience, this kind of thing. That would be a question mark. And so that is a big call. I just wonder if the balance of the team might win out, though. And so, I would play him, I think, because I just think Sunderland do look way better balanced with him there.
And so you think it's likely that Le Bris starts both Mayenda and Isidore rather than choosing one or the other?
I think that's a very distinct possibility, yeah. And that, especially if he doesn't feel that Mundle's ready, then yeah, I think we probably see Le Fere on the left, and maybe one in behind. Unless he goes back to the Rig lineup. I've talked round in circles here, haven't I?
I was doing the same. Yeah, I was doing the same.
Because again,
it's those 4 players. Seven players pick themselves.
Players. Yeah. It's 4 spots, and it's 6 players to go into them, isn't it?
And if you're Chris Wilder, I mean, that's not ideal, is it?
No.
I mean, I know you plan for every possibility, so Wilder and his coaching staff will feel that they are well equipped, whatever it puts out. But that's not ideal, not knowing, because they're different players. Mundle and Le Fere so different on the left. Mayenda and Isidore are different. Rig and Roberts are different. They're very different options. It's a very different team, really, depending on what starts.
And I don't think it will happen, but as we saw at the first leg of the semi-final, it's not completely out of the blue that Le Bris looks at Sheffield United and decides, do you know what? I'm going to go with a completely different formation. I mean, I think I'm with you. We know roughly the players that are going to start. We certainly know 7 of them, I think. But it wouldn't be completely out of the question for Le Bris to say, do you know what? This is what I think Sheffield United's key threat is. This is how we stop it. This is how I'm going to set the team up to do it. What might that mean? It might mean a Neil or a Job sitting very deep and playing with 2 8s, which he's done a kid. I don't think we'll see that level of a change, but you couldn't rule it out with Le Bris. There's some managers that you would know going to Wembley, they're just going to absolutely rely on the tried and tested. They're not going to change anything. That's not nailed on with Le Bris.
I mean, we've said it a few times. I think one of the most impressive factors this season has been his bravery and his willingness to maybe ruthless, but be brave in the big moments. And that first leg was absolutely one of them, because 4-4-2, I think, has flopped as much as it's been a hit this season, hasn't it? And had that not gone to plan in the first leg, Le Bris would have been there, really. He'd have been vulnerable to claims of Why have you gone against
was
your
the need for
favoured
that? Yeah.
system for the biggest game of the season?
Yeah.
You've lost 5 games going into it. Now you've gone away from your favoured system. You've made a mess of this going into the playoffs, and yet even there's a bravery there, isn't there?
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
a courage there.
Yeah, and just a real belief in what he's doing is right. You know,
Mm.
that he backs himself, doesn't he? Which clearly you've got to do.
Right, we won't do predictions because we've got another video to come later this week. So
yeah, and we'll talk a bit more on that one as well, of kind of how Sheffield United might line up and what that might mean, because obviously, you know, Wilder did make changes between the 2 games, didn't he? Wasn't the same team there either. So there's a couple of selection kind of decisions he'll make, which will be interesting to see how that then impacts on the game.
So yeah, keep your eye on the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, and just tap the button below, and then you'll get the alert through whenever a video goes live. Same on your podcast platforms. Follow on there and rate, review on there as well. Do get in touch if there's anything you want us to discuss specifically ahead of that second vid and pod we do later in the week. But thanks for your support. Thanks for the comments, by the way. We appreciate that, your comments in the video. And just a heads up, you can still subscribe to We Are Sunderland, of course. It's just £1 for 6 months, which will get you full access to all coverage and analysis this weekend at Wembley. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back later this week with our second build-up. Take care.